My guy, Earl the Pearl, joins the show today to talk about how much we trust Kevin Stefanski to develop these quarterbacks and so much more coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Dog Pound? I'm Spencer German, your host of the Locked On Browns podcast. I'm proudly covering your Cleveland Browns each and every single day in the land and on the road. And I'm so excited about today's show. My guy, Earl the Pearl, joins me. You've probably seen Earl on a multitude of platforms. He's all over the place, including the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, the Ultimate 216 Show, and you've probably heard him as my co-host on Saturday mornings on 92.2 The Fan, which is why I'm excited about this, because when Earl and I get together, if you've listened to the show long enough, you know it's about 30 minutes. Earl and I could probably go for like 3 hours on some of these topics. So I'm excited about what we're going to bring to the table today. Earl, I'm so excited to finally get you on here and make your Locked On Browns debut, my man. Thank you.
Man, thanks for having me, man. It's good to be on Locked On Browns with my boy. Can't wait to talk Browns. Like, we got that Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb combo type thing going on. Like, you know, that's the combo we bring. I'm excited to be here, excited to talk some Cleveland Browns football with you, my guys. So thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man. No, this has been a long time coming. I know we've been talking about it for a while, and this is the perfect time of year to have you on. Because listen, man, it's June. We're sort of waiting, counting down the days till training camp starts, and we have like more things to talk about. And so this is a fun sort of time of year to get other people's opinions, get other people's thoughts, bounce stuff off of each other. And I kind of want to start with the topic that, of course, everyone's focused on this time of year. They'll be focused on it when training camp opens, which is the quarterback competition. You and I have gone back and forth a number of times on our feelings on this quarterback room, who might win the job, who's the best of the two rookies, all these different things. My question, though, that kind of percolated this week for you is there's been more and more said, I think, in recent days about the Browns potentially keeping all four of these quarterbacks. And just from your perspective, do you think that's something that the Browns will do? Do you think that's something that the Browns should do once training camp ends at the end of August?
No, I don't think it's something the Browns should do. I think the Cleveland Browns are in a situation to where you might have too many quarterbacks. And I think that when you have four quarterbacks that you're trying to quote unquote develop, I think it makes that process much tougher than what it needs to be. I think from everybody that I have spoken to, Spencer, including yourself, who watched them, you know, doing the voluntary OTAs, seeing the rookies doing rookie mini camp, and then of course the mandatory mini camp that just recently taken place, you pretty much know what the pecking order looks like. And Kenny Pickett, you know, from the eye test looks like the odd man out, though we keep seeing and hearing reports that, you know, he has some real weight in the room as far as getting the opportunity to come out there and earn the opportunity to start. Now, I look at it like he should be the odd guy out. Joe Flacco is the savvy veteran, and then you have the two rookies that you really need to focus on developing this year so that you don't have to spend a first-round pick on a quarterback next year. I think, like, when I look at this situation, bro, I compare it a lot to what happened in San Francisco. I think that was 2021 when the 49ers identified Trey Lance as, quote-unquote, their guy, and they made that huge trade to, you know, move up and draft him. And later on in that same draft, they drafted Brock Purdy. Now, even though they identified Trey as their guy, circumstances and quality of play, Brock Purdy, you know, the cream rose to the top. And luckily for them, you know, they didn't have to, you know, worry about trying to find a quarterback next year and the year after that. And so the Cleveland Browns may have or may not have struck gold with what they have now, but you know, all signs point to that they might have something in one of those two rookies.
Yeah, no doubt. And they certainly feel very highly about Dylan Gabriel, excuse me. I know you and I both really like Shador. We think he's the most talented quarterback on this roster of the group, but the Browns seem to be sort of slow playing it with those rookies. I do want to get to that here coming up as well, because yeah, man, like, listen, I think you and I have both talked about this on 92.3. The idea that like we see the depth chart the same way right now. And I think there's an interesting conversation to sort of be had in that. I real quick though, going back to the keeping four quarterbacks thing, because Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk, I know, was on 92.3 yesterday, and he talked about the idea that like maybe the chatter on keeping 4 quarterbacks is more so about the Browns trying to sort of play hardball and sort of set the stage for that situation where you get to the end of training camp and then you can trade one of them. I feel like that probably, I think that could have some legs. Like I still listen. It's the Browns; they could do anything. We've seen over the year this organization do some boneheaded stuff at times. So and some off the wall stuff. But so maybe they would keep 4. But to me, I think Florio might have been on the right track with that. Where this is Andrew Berry's way of, like he's done the last 2 years, kind of signaling to people, hey, we got these 4 quarterbacks. We might keep 4. We might keep all of them unless you really send us an offer that we can't refuse. Not that you're going to get a haul for any of these guys necessarily, but like, unless you really, if you end up needing a quarterback, we have some available, but you really got to give us something that we're looking for if we're going to try to move one of them to you.
Yeah, when I look at it like that, I mean, we all know injuries in the NFL is real. And when you get to training camp and to preseason, there are going to be quarterbacks who are going to go down, whether it be QB1 or QB2, and phone calls will be made. And as long as the Cleveland Browns have 4 quarterbacks on their roster, teams will call the Cleveland Browns. And so as we get closer to the regular season, depending on the other team's situation, that price very well may go up, right? Kenny Pickett might turn into a guy that's traded for a 4th round pick. That might sound crazy today, but a month from now, a month and a half from now, depending on what goes on across the NFL, it won't be the craziest thing in the world. I agree with you. I think this is the general manager, trying not to show his hand too early, because it's very unorthodox to carry 4 quarterbacks on your roster, especially on this team where you have so many other positions of need that you kind of need to have depth at.
I agree. The depth chart becomes this addition by subtraction. And given the injuries this team has had at offensive line over the years, like they might want to keep 10 guys there. They might want to keep a couple extra guys there. Defensive line is a group where you keep like 9, 10, maybe even sometimes more guys. Like you lose out on those spots if you keep a 4th quarterback. And for a team that does, like, none of these guys are like, maybe Shedeur or Dylan Gabriel become something, which is why I think sitting here today, I would say the only thing I can pretty much guarantee is that I feel confident in saying both those guys will be on this roster. And then it's about the veterans, like who they keep and who they move on from. But understanding that, like, in a group that doesn't really have a clear, lead horse, if you will, it feels like it would be silly to keep all 4 just for the entire season, or even in for any length of time into the season, when you don't really even have one that just like stands out as like, this is our guy, at least at this juncture.
Yeah, I agree with that. The sooner we get to training camp and we can start really looking at their reps and counting those reps for real, I think we'll get a better look at how this thing is going to go down. But I'm inclined to agree with you. You got Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round, you got Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round. And you have 2 rookie quarterbacks that's on rookie deals. And even if either one of those dudes are not your future long-term starting quarterback, you still have a quarterback 2 and a quarterback 3 on this roster that's cap friendly going forward. And so when people, analyze this situation with the Cleveland Browns quarterbacks now, I think it's important to kind of look towards the future as well. We all know, like, we're on the back end of coming out of that Deshaun Watson situation with that contract. And so that'll free up some money. But if you can build out a talented roster, right, and you find that you have quality quarterbacks on this team, regardless if it's quarterback 1 or not, you want to move forward with that, because, again, it's cheap talent. You get you a backup and a 3rd string quarterback on rookie contracts, and you can kind of like outsource resources elsewhere to help build this team. And that's how most teams in the NFL do it. Now, on the flip side, you might strike gold and one of these guys is actually your quarterback 1, and then that's even better. Now you lock down a quarterback that's on a rookie deal, and you can still do the same thing. And now you have draft capital in 2026 that you can play around with. This is my first time on Locked On Browns, man, but you've heard me say this before. If one of these quarterbacks hit, you take one of those 2026 picks and you flip it for a 2027 first round pick. That gives you 2 of those things, right? And the goal is, no matter what, you go get Jeremiah Smith. That's the goal. Browns need to be looking at this thing 2 years down the road, man.
Yeah, I mean, listen, honestly, and the other, that's the reason that's not a bad thought too, Earl, is like, say you were to flip, like, I know where your heart's at with this, where you want Jeremiah Smith, and I everybody wants Jeremiah Smith for obvious reasons in 2027. But even if you like the kicking the can down the road thing on where you use that extra pick is interesting to me too, because if you think Dylan Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders could be your guy, if they show you enough this year that you're like, well, now I'm intrigued. Yeah, maybe you even punt the quarterback conversation down the line a year. Like if you think one of those guys could be the guy, maybe they go into 2026 as your starter, and then you give yourself another year to sort of wait and see if you need to draft a different quarterback as one of these guys, isn't it? You know what I'm saying? So even that decision from that vantage point, I think makes some sense as well. We're going to talk about this a little bit more with Earl, because I think in a microscope, in a perfect world rather, the quarterback competition sorts itself out and it's clear and obvious who the best quarterback is. But it's not a perfect world. That rarely happens when you have a quarterback competition like this. So I want to find out from Earl if he thinks, if it's close with all these quarterbacks, if they should end up starting a rookie week one. And plus, we got to get into Kevin Stefanski and his ability to develop quarterbacks, which is something we haven't seen yet. All that more coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning for a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO giving you full visibility control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. My wife and I have been trying to get some bigger projects done around the house this summer. We're also trying to plan some trips this summer. We got a vacation coming up. We needed to get a better look at our full financial picture, find out where we could save some money to do the things that we want to do. Monarch Money has made managing our money together as a couple smoother than ever. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. All right, Earl. So as I teased before our break there, I mentioned, this quarterback competition in a perfect world, like one of these guys balls out and it becomes clear and obvious he has to be the starter. But it's not a perfect world. These types of competitions rarely sort themselves out that way when you got four guys all kind of competing for one job. And two of them being reasons that it seems like the Browns don't really want to play week one. But listen, if Shedeur is incredible in the preseason and training camp, or Dylan Gabriel like really turns heads and it becomes undeniable, like if it's close, should the Browns just roll out one of those rookies week one? Or are you still inclined, because I know how you feel on this in retrospect, are you still inclined to feel like, man, I would still slow play with those quarterbacks and not put anybody out there week one because you don't think it's an advantageous situation to that guy developing the right way?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. And
for sure.
To be totally honest with you, man, my mind hasn't changed. I really, if it was me going into the regular season, Joe Flacco is my starting quarterback. Shedeur Sanders is my quarterback 2, and Dylan Gabriel is my quarterback 3. Kenny Pickett is not on his team. Joe Flacco is a savvy veteran, and he understands the nuances of the NFL. And week one, when it's for real, like when live bullets is flying, that can be dangerous for a rookie quarterback.
Yeah. And
you have to be careful before you just kind of throw a rookie quarterback out there to a fire, because they might not be able to come back from an unsuccessful first attempt. You know what I mean? And so to me, I think giving whatever rookie a few games to watch, learn, see how it is like for real, because you really won't understand that until you get to week one of the regular season. And I think this is where Joe Flacco, the veteran, is going to show up. And if the two rookies are paying attention, they can learn a lot. And then you have to think of the aspect of the other players on this team, right? There are veteran players on this team who expect to win. They want to win. Denzel Ward has came out and said that this is going to be a good year for him personally. And he feels like this is the Cleveland Browns year. You got guys in that locker room who is focused on winning, despite what we in the media might think or say, locally and nationally. And so Joe Flacco gives them the most immediate opportunity to have success and to win. But as we go further down the road, I'm gonna be real and I'm gonna be just raw and honest with you. I go back, man, and I jog my memory backwards throughout this entire process, right? And granted, you can't trust every piece of information that you see, and not everybody is perfect. Not everybody gets, these draft predictions and top players right. But every single draft expert, from the Todd McShays to the Mel Kipers, across the board, across every national platform, ranked their top 100, top 150 players. And not once did I see Dylan Gabriel's name. When you seen all the top quarterbacks, if they ranked them 1 through 5, even if they ranked them 1 through 8, not once did I see personally Dylan Gabriel's name. And if the Browns had some, offset meetings and they did their extensive homework and they fell in love with him, it just looked like a one-off to me. All I'm saying is Shedeur Sanders, we both know, should have been drafted much higher than what he was. I'm just thankful that he's here, and the Cleveland Browns might have gotten lucky and found themselves a franchise quarterback. When you have veteran players that's gravitating towards a rookie like that, it says a lot. Granted, Chad Ochocinco, for example, on his podcast, he's not close to the situation, but he clearly has some relationships with some players on his team. And we have spent several weeks talking about the stats and all these different camps. But when he talked about, to hell with the stats and to hell with all of that, we're talking about how he's spinning that football, how he's commanding the offense and things like that. Those are things that guys who put on those pads and helmets, those are things that they pay attention to and things that matter to them. And I think the Cleveland Browns honestly might have a future star at quarterback with Shedeur Sanders. All he has to do is just keep putting in the work and doing the things that he has to do. And I'm not trying to throw shade at Dylan Gabriel. I just honestly believe of the two players, I think Shedeur Sanders is better, and I don't think it's close. Now, that doesn't mean that Dylan Gabriel can't be developed or he can't be an asset to this football team. Because even if you are a second or third string quarterback, if you're in that quarterback room doing your homework and being inclusive into the overall goal, you never know when your opportunity may come. Injuries is real in this league, so I look at it like you got an opportunity, man, if I'm him, to just show what you can do and see what happens. But I really like what the Browns got in Shedeur. And even if they both kind of, did what they had to do during training camp to heighten that opportunity for them, I still roll with Joe week 1.
Listen, I think, first of all, I agree on Shedeur. I think he's the most talented of this group of quarterbacks. I just think the Browns want to I think the Browns want to do what you're outlining here. I think they want to slow play with both those guys, not put them out there in a a situation where they maybe struggle because it's a tough opening stretch of the schedule and all these things, and probably you won't see them until later in the season. That doesn't mean I don't think Shedeur could and this is why it's such an interesting conversation, Earl, because I think in today's day and age, the way quarterbacks are handled has changed. If you're a first round pick, like Cam Ward, for example, it's not gone are the days where you have to absolutely positively sit behind somebody and develop for a year, take a redshirt year in the NFL. That doesn't happen anymore. And part of that is because these coaches, their windows of their job security are shorter than ever. So if you think you have a franchise guy and you use a first round pick on him, you want to get him out there sooner rather than later. Now, the situation for the Browns is different because they took these guys later. There's not as much pressure to play a third round pick or a fifth round pick, even if that fifth round pick is Shedeur Sanders, who we both think is really good. If they had taken Shedeur in the first round, it's a different story. Now you almost feel like you got to play him week 1 because you're investing in the fact that you use such a high pick on him. But so that's why I think it's an interesting conversation, because the conversation, it has shifted over the years from being take the redshirt year, sit for a year, to, hey, if you think you have your guy, you start them immediately and get them as many reps as possible. But in this situation, I think it's a little bit different.
And I agree with that because I do think it differs per situation. You go back to when Patrick Mahomes was drafted, right? A lot of people forget he only played the final regular season game of his rookie year. And so Andy Reid and the Chiefs had a plan for him that clearly worked out, right? Will Patrick Mahomes still be the same guy if he was thrust in there into action week 1 of his rookie season, where he was still green and he still had a lot to learn? And so we will never know that, right? But clearly,
right.
he is one of the last quarterbacks that was drafted in the first round that got the opportunity to sit. You look at the situation in Atlanta last year with Michael Penix Jr., right? They give Kirk Cousins all that money. They still make the choice to draft that quarterback in the first round. End of the season, he gets an opportunity to play after sitting for the majority of the year. So we have very few examples of that being the course of action. It looks like how the Cleveland Browns wants to take that course of action here, and it's easier for them to do so because either one of their quarterbacks was not drafted in the first round. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
So along those lines, Earl, I think the next part of the quarterback conversation, especially as the two rookies are concerned, is whether or not you trust Kevin Stefanski to develop these guys. And what I think is, I was thinking about this and I talked about it a little bit yesterday. When you think about Kevin Stefanski's history with quarterbacks, you have the first year he's here with Baker Mayfield, which was great. Like at that time, that was the best year of Baker's career. But now Baker has gone on to play somewhere else, and he's better than he was that year with Kevin Stefanski. So then you fast forward, you get the second year with Baker, not a great year. Obviously, there was injuries that were part of that equation. You get the year with Deshaun and Jacoby Brissett sort of splitting the starts because he was suspended to start the year. And Brissett looked like maybe he was having the best year of his career, one of the best years of his career with Stefanski. He was good. He was fine. I wouldn't say he was amazing, but he was fine. And then you get the Deshaun experience the last couple of years, which has been a very much a roller coaster ride. Kevin Stefanski trying to fit a quarterback that probably didn't fit his scheme into his scheme or vice versa. And it just didn't work. But you have Joe Flacco thrown in there where Joe Flacco basically saved his career and gets a couple extra years out of this thing because of what he did with the Browns in 2023. You see a couple other small moments with like a PJ Walker and even DTR getting a win against the Steelers a couple years ago. And then that brings us to last year where it was like just a complete disaster at the quarterback position, but they weren't running an offense that really even resembled what Kevin Stefanski's offense is supposed to look like. So as I think about these things, the one quarterback card Kevin Stefanski hasn't been handed yet is draft and develop a quarterback into your starter. I know they drafted DTR, but we all knew DTR probably wasn't in line to become a starter on this team at some point. This year, they actually have two guys, one in Gabriel, who they really loved, that they maybe think could have a future as a starter in this league, and another in Shedeur Sanders that was misdrafted, if you will, because he should have gone earlier and could potentially be a starter in this league. Like, he has two guys that he could potentially develop here, or if you don't end up thinking either of these guys are going to be it, you draft one next year, and that's your guy, like in the first round, potentially with these 2 first-round picks that they have. And so my question in all this, Earl, is as you think about Kevin Stefanski in the quarterback position, he's had some good moments. I don't know if there's been any great moments where you're like, this guy's like some quarterback guru. Mm-hmm. And so I'm wondering if because this is the first time he's getting a chance to actually draft and develop guys, either this year or next year, are you giving him a clean slate when it comes to the quarterback position and his ability to find one? Or are you sort of entering the season hesitant and concerned about his ability to do that at this point?
I'm entering this season TBD, and I am a Kevin Stefanski guy.
Yeah.
But when you talk about the development of quarterbacks, I can't say that I've seen Kevin Stefanski develop any quarterback. But what I can say is I have seen Kevin Stefanski time in and time out put quarterbacks in the best situation possible to win and have success. Yeah. And I think those are definitely two different teams, right? Two different things. You know, as you alluded to, Jacoby Brissett was having one of the best seasons of his career. We know Baker Mayfield had his weaknesses and his deficiencies, and Kevin Stefanski did, I think, a great job of hiding those when Baker, was bought in and wanting to pay attention. I think the Deshaun Watson thing, that's a whole nother story within itself. But you look at what happened this year. For some odd reason, I do feel like this is the first season that Kevin Stefanski had the majority of the say of the quarterbacks that was coming out of the draft that he wanted. He fell in love with Dylan Gabriel, and clearly Shedeur Sanders is another guy who fits his system that me and you believe more than a lot of the quarterbacks that was coming out in this draft. And so he and his staff will have the opportunity for the first time to develop a quarterback. And I think we will be paying very close attention if he can get that done. I do think, though, as a head coach, you're only as strong as your staff. I think he's been Don, this QB whisperer or this guy that can develop quarterbacks. And that might be a little bit of a false narrative. I know that Kevin Stefanski landed this job because he was a great play caller. And so how we got to the point of, him being this quarterback developer is beyond me, because coming into the process, it was more so about the offensive scheme and him being able to call plays. Now we look at where we are now, and I just feel like over his tenure, he's been able to put quarterbacks in the best position to have success. We're going to see if he can develop a quarterback of his own and get the most out of him. But he has a strong staff. Like, you got a strong QB coach, and you have a young, hot offensive coordinator that was highly touted. And so it'd be interesting to see, the development of these two young men, not just by Kevin, but by Kevin and his staff.
It's well said. And yeah, I think like Stefanski kind of falls in the bucket with like a Kyle Shanahan, where it's like it's less about him being a quarterback developer and more about, does he have the right guy for the system he likes to run? So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, like even if the Browns don't think they have their franchise guy right now with these two rookies, to see them develop this year will go a long way, I think, in helping people feel like, okay, Stefanski can do that at some point when they potentially draft a different quarterback. So it will be something to keep an eye on, no doubt, this season. Final segment coming up with Earl. We got a few ancillary things I want to get to about this team, players he's excited about or he thinks are poised for a good season, the rookie he's the most excited about, and a few other things as well. So keep it locked. Earl the Pearl joining me one final time here on today's episode of Locked On Browns. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra and Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them yourself. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rouette Ready. Rouette Ready is the next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rouette is designed as a 3-in-1 formula that dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options just have not worked, Rouette might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. Head to rouette.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit Rougette's website for the full safety information. All right, final segment with my guy, Earl the Pearl, here on the Locked On Browns podcast. And Earl, I guess I kind of want to start this one by first just kind of getting your thoughts on this kind of bombshell piece that broke this week about the NFL and how the Browns' Deshaun Watson contract really opened this door for some version of colluding to go on behind the scenes. And even though the arbiter that ruled on the case decided to rule in the NFL's favor, there was the nugget in there that he said there was little question that this management council advised the owners to act a certain way, which basically is colluding without saying colluding. So Earl, like, as you saw this kind of play out and understanding that it all kind of stemmed from what the Browns did with the Deshaun Watson trade, what were your overall thoughts on just what that piece found this week?
I wasn't shocked or surprised. NFL is big business, and this is not the first time that collusion has taken place behind the scenes. There can be black and white guidelines in place, but we are talking about billion-dollar owners who have a lot of power and a lot of say. And I read an article yesterday, and I was floored by several text messages were sent between owners and GMs about possible quarterback deals that they had in place for guys that they wanted to pursue. And it was very evident and very clear that a lot of these owners, and some of them mentioned the Cleveland Browns, was not going to interrupt due process ever again. And that what Jimmy Haslam did was a one-off. And if you look at everything that took place with the Cleveland Browns after the fact, I think it had more to do with Jimmy Haslam's process more than it did with Deshaun Watson. And here's why. Deshaun Watson, regardless if he got $230 million guaranteed, is a very small fry in a large container of fries that you get from your favorite fast food restaurant, right? And when Jimmy hands out that much guaranteed money, it can disrupt the order of process and change the narrative completely. And that pissed off a lot of owners. And you see how Deshaun Watson's suspension went from 6 to 11 games. That had nothing to do with Deshaun Watson. That was a punishment to Jimmy Haslam. And the Cleveland Browns have suffered for it because at the end all be all, if Deshaun Watson would have performed on the football field, this would be a nothing burger. But he didn't. Yeah. And the consequences was mass, not just for the Cleveland Browns, but for other players in the league. I thought another part of that article that stood out to me that was interesting was our former Browns offensive lineman, J.C. Tretter, and how, he had some choice words for Russell Wilson because he felt like Russell was really out for himself instead of, standing in line with his brothers trying to change the narrative.
Yeah.
He even said that Russell could have been the first one that changed this narrative forever, but he didn't. And he's a guy that had lobbied for fully guaranteed contracts. Yesterday, I did my Ultimate 216 show. I hope your audience get a chance to go check that out. And my co-host is a former NFL wide receiver, Cecil Shorts. And we talked about guaranteed deals. And we talked about the nuances of NFL contracts and how, things from security for you and your family is major to these players. But not only that, the benefits, the health insurance. He explained to me that, he only had health insurance for 5 years after he retired from the NFL. And Cecil suffered a career-ending injury that almost ended in his leg being amputated. And so I do think players deserve guaranteed contracts. I think there needs to, and we talked about this Saturday when it comes to baseball, but I do think there needs to be a floor and a cap per position with about a 2.2% annual increase each year. And I think and that way the owners can save some money, but you can field more competitive teams as well.
That's a good sort of idea. I like that a lot. Listen, I thought there were so many different things to unpack from this. I thought it was interesting that because of those words that JC Tretter had about Russell Wilson, assuming that Russell Wilson could have been the next guy to get a fully guaranteed contract after Deshaun, and that really could have changed the game. That was the reason why the NFLPA didn't want this out, which is crazy because this is a bombshell report and a bombshell finding that would have helped the NFLPA immensely. They should want it out there that these owners are doing this, and they tried to cover it up. That's insane. And then I also just thought I agree with you that it wasn't surprising overall, but why it matters, Earl, is any of those times that we've sort of tongue in cheek been like, hey, what if the NFLs were colluding on this and just kind of said it as a passing comment? I mean, hell, as recently as this last draft with Shedeur Sanders, right? Did the NFL try to send him a message? Now there's reason to doubt that they did that actually happened, right? You put in the minds of fans hey, if they can collude on not giving out fully guaranteed contracts, they can collude on just about anything.
Yeah, they got all the power, man. They got all the power. And they can come out and they can tell us whatever they want to tell us, but you're absolutely right. Because collude don't guarantee fully guaranteed contracts. That's big level. It's so it's easy to collude on somebody falling in the draft. And it ain't the first time that they've done that with a player either. So, we've seen it before. And that's tough, man. That's really tough.
Yeah, we'll see what this means moving forward. And
another thing on that.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about this until yesterday until I did the show. Lamar Jackson wanted a fully guaranteed contract. Of all the people who came out, I said Tom wanted a fully guaranteed deal. He probably deserved it the most. He's a 2-time league MVP. Remember when they put out there that he was available for a trade? Nobody made an offer for a 2-time MVP.
That we both talked about that.
If collusion ain't real in the NFL, I don't know what it is.
And the dude, it was crazy. And this was in this piece too, or in the findings in the document that was released. The arbiter basically was the arguments that the owners made some sense. Where it's Arthur Blank's well, he gets injured a lot, and another owner's well, you got to change your whole offense for him. It's I think you'd be okay changing your whole offense for a guy who's a 2-time MVP. That's just but I don't know. That seems a little crazy. We talk all the time about these guys, part of the Shedeur argument about when he fell. Well, hey, if he was talented enough, he wouldn't have fallen. And these owners aren't going to pass up on talent. they passed up on Lamar Jackson when they had the chance to sign him. So what are we talking about here? Like, he's pretty damn talented, if you ask me. But we'll move on here. A couple final things I want to get to. First of all, and I think I know where you're going to go with this question specifically, because I know where your heart's at with this. But give me a player on the Browns that you think people are maybe sleeping on in 2025.
Rookie or veteran?
I have a rookie follow-up, so give me like a veteran on this roster.
Oh, veteran on this roster that people are sleeping on. My man had a down year last year.
I knew it.
His first year in the NFL. He showed you what it was. He showed you he was him. He's donning a number. Like Nelly, he is number one. Martin Emerson Jr. Listen, man, like last season, I think that it humbled him. I thought it brought him back to the drawing board. And I believe that he has put in immense work this offseason. He's not the fastest corner in the NFL, but we've seen him have one of the best seasons in the league without that even being the case. There's 2 starting corners in the NFL for every team, and I think he's a damn good one. And I think this year is going to be a redemption year, and I think people is going to find out exactly why he is quote unquote him, especially when you get a chance to play across from the Warden.
I figured that's where you're going with it. I know you too well at this point, Earl, but I tend to agree too. I think he's in line for a bounce back season. Final thing, going to the rookie group now specifically. Which rookie do you think is going to have the biggest impact on the Browns season in 2025?
Oh, it's my guy that's still not signed yet. I think it's going to be Quinshon Judkins, man. And, bro, I'll take it a step further. I think at the end of the season, I think Quinshon Judkins is going to have had a top 10 season for a running back in 2025. I think he's that good. I think he's that talented.
A couple weeks ago, Earl, I threw out 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns, and I said he'd make the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, and I don't think that's
that with me.
Yeah, I co-sign that with you. I don't think it's far-fetched. Like, he has speed, he has power, he can run in between tackles. He's fast enough to get on the outside. He's a 3-down back. He's a guy that can pick up blocks, which is huge, in order for you to stay on the field as a 3-down back in the NFL. I think he has vision. I think he does a great job of protecting the football. And I think that, his persona overall is going to give Browns fans something to be excited for. But, a lot has been made about, and there's some great running backs in the NFL, but Genty, he went in the first round, and a lot has been made about him. But I think Quinshon Judkins is going to be the rookie running back that's going to make the most noise. And my big bold prediction, he has a top 10 season as a rookie throughout the NFL for that position.
I like this. We're going to have to bring this to 92.3 at some point, talk about our love for Quinshon. But Earl, listen, my man, I appreciate you. This was some great stuff. This is the first time. Certainly won't be the last time I have you on, my man. I'll get you back on the show. I'm glad we got a chance to do this too, because I know you won't be. For those of you who might hear us on 92.3, Earl's out this week. So I'm going to miss you, Earl, on Saturday, and I know I won't be in the week after that. So it's going to be a couple weeks we don't get to see each other. So I'm glad we at least got a chance to riff a little bit before we're both kind of off the schedule here for a couple of days.
Big facts, man. I enjoy this, man. Make sure y'all follow me on all social media platforms at Earl the Pearl 216. Check out the Ultimate 216 show. Check out the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. And yes, 2 weeks, me and my guy, Spencer German, Spencito, will be back on the Wake Up on 92.3 The Fan, 8 a.m. to high noon, man. We have a lot of fun on our show. I think we got the best show in Cleveland. So you all be the judge.
Preach. That's well said. And it's another episode Down With You, Dog Pound. Thank you for joining me as always to talk about your favorite football team. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make Locked On Browns your first listen every day. And for your second listen, you can check out Locked On NFL Scouting or keep it local. Check out our guy, Danny Cunningham at Locked On Cavs, or you can check out Locked On Guardians as well. Thank you for being an everydayer at the Locked On at the Locked On Network. I will talk to you again real soon, Cleveland. See you.